What's up, Josh? How are you?
I'm good, man. How's it going?
Pretty good. Thank you for coming on. How's the weather in Maryland?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we've had some pretty heavy thunderstorms
Oh
going on the
yeah.
past couple of days. So we
Is
just
it?
had one probably about 30 minutes ago. Got
Dang.
soaked a little bit, but it's gone now. So we're chilling.
Yeah, it's rainy here in New York too, but it's like rainy here every other day. Do y'all get hot days? Like what is the average hot day in Maryland?
Dude, yeah, it gets really hot in the summer, and then around wintertime it really gets cold.
Yeah.
Like wintertime we'll get, I mean, a couple of years ago we got 4 or 5 feet of snow. That hasn't happened
Wow.
in a while, but
Jeez.
recently we've had a couple of days in like the mid to high 90s, and that's,
Uh-huh. Oh, that is pretty hot. I'm coming from Texas. That's definitely hot.
yeah.
Cool. So I have prepared a couple questions as I let you know before we started. And I guess like a good place to get started is just kind of the very beginning of, well, actually, let me first ask you to explain what it is that you do, like with Moco and like how it kind of got started.
So I guess I'll start off with how it got started. Um, so I was almost like a foreman or like a pool supervisor for
Mhm.
a small company called Kensington Aquatics. And I
Yeah.
know like most of your listeners probably don't know where Kensington is, but it's right outside of DC. It's
Uh-huh.
one of those suburbs. Lots of government people live here, and commute or workers straight into DC. So
Hmm.
we managed 4 or 5 pools in that area. I was overseeing it, and then COVID hit. So when COVID hit, it was kind of like shit, because I'm paying
Hmm.
for my own rent, tons of school associated expenses, and
Yeah.
part of my tuition. So
And this is
I
at
was
U
kind
of
of in
M.
UMD,
Oh,
University of
UMD,
Maryland.
sorry. Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, no, it's all good. People call it both, but
Hmm.
I at this time actually went to Towson University, which is
Okay.
it's not as good of a school, but it's all right. Right outside
Hmm.
of Baltimore. If
Got
you've
it.
heard of Baltimore.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard of Baltimore.
Yeah, not not the greatest place to be flat out, but long story short, I was going there. COVID hits, I get sent home. April, May runs around, and I'm like, yeah, probably not going to go back to the pools to work.
Hmm.
So it was like, I could just sort of start hustling around. Like, my boss had me go to the dump a few times in my truck and
Hmm.
paid me pretty well for it. So I was like, maybe if I try to advertise junk removal, I could make money just with like this bare minimum pickup truck I had. And
Yeah.
from there, like I started with a batch of flyers. It was like maybe 200 printout flyers. And
Uh-huh.
that completely failed. Like I went around to my neighbors and got like one call for
Really?
a refrigerator. And it was
Uh-huh.
just like shit. But, I didn't really know much at the time. And I just started looking up ways like how to get small businesses out. And I started with the Facebook page and started taking pictures, did a
Hmm.
couple free jobs, started learning about like Facebook ads and how you could
Okay.
sponsor Facebook ads for
Yeah.
really cheap amounts of money. From there, I kept playing with it week to week and slowly just started getting more calls. But that's sort of how I got off the ground.
Got it.
Um,
Got it. So I guess like that's super interesting that you mentioned like well, first let me talk about the pool stuff a little bit. So this was I'll just rapid fire a couple questions. So this was while you were in college, correct? Like your freshman year?
right. Yeah. I started there when I was 16.
Okay. Oh, so this was before college. Like you've been working
Yeah.
at it. Okay. And this was like you weren't running this operation. Someone had just, I guess, hired you to help overlook it.
So I started off as a lifeguard, and I kind of was just like, a lot of the kids there were like completely just like getting high and like not taking their job seriously. Like
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
a summer lifeguarding job. But I was like,
Mhm.
hey, if I like just kind of put my head down and like learn how this stuff works, I could get paid more. So that's what I
Yeah.
did. And like a year or two, I was working like 50, 60 hour weeks when they really needed people, at the
Wow.
end of the summer. And
Yeah.
they put me up to the supervisor in like a year and a half. And then it was just kind of all on me.
Got it. Got it. No, that's super cool. So it seems like you've kind of always had like this like knack for like just making money. Like is that and I guess there were expenses you had to pay too, so that kind of motivated you. Okay, cool. So let's say so you began this like flyer thing. Like what made you want to start with like just printing out flyers or were you like, that's how I've seen it done, so I'll try to.
Yeah, I mean, I always got like the super nice, expensive. Well, I didn't realize they were expensive until I started
Uh-huh.
trying to buy them. But like the little postcards you get in the
Yeah,
mail from
yeah,
like the
yeah.
landscaping companies.
Hmm.
So I was like, dude, I could go to CVS and print like 200 of these for $20.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And it just,
Was it $20?
yeah, it was, I
Oh
mean, it was
wow.
cheap back
Okay.
then. It sounds funny to say that because it was
Yeah.
like 3 years ago, but yeah, back then it was cheap.
Cool. And so that didn't work. So let's talk. This Facebook thing is super intriguing. So was it like originally you just began like joining like neighborhood communities or like what were you doing on Facebook when you first got on it for like your like junk removal company?
So yeah, it was Facebook communities and I just wrote out a message. It was like super simple and not well punctuated. Like my writing
Hmm.
skills now are way higher than they were
Yeah.
before, but I kind
Yeah.
of just wrote like, hello everybody, like my name's Josh Franks. I'm from Rockville, Maryland, and me and my friend, we got our jobs taken out. You
Hmm.
guys are sitting at home staring at stuff you don't want. Like,
Yeah.
give us a call. We'll come take it. And
Interesting.
that
So
ended up working well. So
so we can get into that, but before I ask about that, like did these like whatever Facebook like community organizers, like I don't know, like admins, I don't know the right word, did they just let you like advertise? Because I know there's like usually on like online communities there's a bunch of rules against like advertising on certain communities. Did you just ask them or did you just post it? Like how'd that go?
yeah, it's interesting that you asked that because I ran into a lot of trouble like with people getting mad at me, but I had to
Uh-huh.
make it really clear that I actually was like a kid from that neighborhood. Because then
Okay.
it's like if you talk to the owner
Yeah.
and you send like a personal message and you're nice, like they're not gonna say they're not gonna say no.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just like schmoozing
Hmm.
people along
Yeah.
sometimes helps.
Agreed. Okay, so you said it did well. Like, what was the turnout? Like, how did you like what did you say and like how many customers were you starting to get before you started doing Facebook ads? So we'll like talk about that separately, but just in terms of putting it in communities, like when you say it went well, like how like what did that turn out to be?
So I mean, it's not like I made like tons of money off these little
Hmm.
Facebook posts, but it was enough to get me lifted off the ground. And what I did when I first started doing these jobs is I was like super not in people's faces. I don't want to say that to give like
Hmm.
the wrong impression, but I was super direct with people and I was like, hey, like we're new. Like you saw, I think you looks like you were satisfied. Like
Hmm.
if you were, please leave a review. Like that is
Okay.
the
Yeah.
most helpful thing you can
Yeah.
do. Because Facebook, what happens is, if someone leaves a review on your page, a lot of the times it'll actually post to their page too.
Oh,
So
really?
that sort of
Okay.
created like a rebound effect.
Uh-huh.
And then it got me to like 100 followers and maybe like 200 total jobs in like
Wow. Okay.
a month and a half. So it
Jeez.
was great
That's insane.
first start.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that first job, so you have like your, I think you, I forgot what word. You said it was like a janky truck that you had. Um, like what was that like? Like, so it's just you and your buddy, you walked in, like what junk is usually asked to like be removed, like at least early on, what like type of junk were you doing? How would like what was the operation there?
Yeah, it's funny because we hadn't ever walked into a situation like this. So
Hmm.
it was kind of like we just had to pretend like we had done this
Yeah.
100 times because we don't
Uh-huh.
want the person who we're
Yeah.
doing our first job for to know it's our first
Yeah.
job. But luckily we pulled up and it was just a garage. And inside of the garage, there was just a refrigerator.
Uh-huh.
And we had a little furniture dolly and we just put it on and kicked it in the truck. And I was like, yeah, I just made $100 in
Dang.
30 seconds,
Where do you
So
usually drop it off? Just like a city wide, like trash area or something like that?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question too, because yeah, there is like a dump where you pay money. Like they
Oh,
weigh you
really?
in, you
Okay.
throw your stuff out, and then they weigh your empty truck. But recently, to cut down on cost and actually like make it like a part of my branding on my
Uh,
website, is like we're trying to donate and recycle everything.
okay.
Even scrap metal I got into. There was
Yeah. Yeah.
a job I had where I actually took a lot or a significant percentage of the job
Hmm.
on scrap because it was all filing cabinets. But
Really?
things like that, we try to do to promote like a green image.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, it's all just that countywide transfer
Got
station
it.
where
Got it.
they take the trash to another place at.
Hmm. Have you ever thought of like potentially like things that people want to get rid of that still has value of like reselling it, or do you kind of just strictly just like throw it away?
So I have done that a couple times.
Okay, nice.
The major issue I've had, well, I haven't ran into, but I don't want to run
Hmm.
into is a lot of the people who contact me for work
Yeah.
are people who try to like use those avenues first. And
Okay,
I don't
yeah,
want
that
them to
makes
sell
sense.
something to me
Yeah.
and then have like a pinged ad on their Facebook
That's
account like
true.
2 days later.
That's a good call out. Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned Facebook ads. Was this like a big part of your business, would you say now?
Yeah, so we do primarily moving now, actually,
Okay.
um, which like switching my uh my reputation from a junk removal company to a moving
Hmm.
company was like strictly off Facebook ads and taking pictures like precisely of what we do. And then
Okay.
maybe I pump like 25 to $50 a week max into those Facebook ads. And like every time I
Interesting.
put one out, I know I'm safe to get at least like 2 or 3 jobs out of it. So I mean it pays for
Really?
itself.
Wow. So, okay, I didn't know that y'all switched over to like moving. Like you're talking about like houses, like if I want to move down like to a neighboring city, like y'all will come and help.
Yeah, we've done moving for like a year and a half. We've
How
done
long
moves
did
to
you do junk?
Florida.
Like how long did you do
Uh,
junk removal for?
we still do it, but
Uh-huh.
we realized, which this is like a whole nother story in itself, so I don't want to like sidetrack too much, but I got a guy who worked for a really big moving company to come like work for me almost as a
Uh-huh.
foreman.
Yeah.
And he started like teaching these guys how to really like wrap furniture
Okay.
properly
Got
and
it.
like pack trucks and do all this
Uh-huh.
stuff because it's honestly a lot harder than you would think to really like do it
Yeah.
in a professional manner, but it's a luxury service, you know. So
Hmm.
people who want to pay for moving usually aren't like, hey, I'm gonna pay for some guy to throw my stuff in this truck for like
Yeah.
200
Yeah.
bucks, you know. But
Interesting. So you like what was the kind of the timeline? So how long was your primary business junk removal? Like X amount of time, and then you said I guess you've been doing moving for like a year and a half now.
yeah, so we've been around for about just over, I would say like 2 years and 3 months now.
Nice.
Two
Cool.
years, 3, 4 months, and
Hmm.
that means we must have switched over at like 9, 10
Yeah.
months, like in
Yeah. Yeah.
January of 2021.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, cool. So with the ads thing, sorry, I know I'm jumping around, but with
Oh,
the
you're
ads
fine.
thing, is this like you just have like kind of a picture infographic type of thing? You pay Facebook $50 and then it like pushes it out for you, or did you ever have to like tweak with the Facebook algorithm, like which specific areas you wanted to focus on and stuff like that?
Yep, that's where things really got good for me. It was like
Hmm.
learning how to manipulate those specific types of ad targeting. You can do like
Interesting.
all types of special categories. You can go by gender,
Yeah.
age, town. You can do their interests, you know, certain
Hmm.
like things that they follow. But yeah, those specific demographics really, really have helped me.
Nice. Yeah, I won't ask for the specific breakdown because I want to keep your company competitive. But was there like a specific thing that surprised you that you like decided to switch with those algorithms and it like helped you? Or like was there anything like what was kind of the learning lesson when you started tweaking with that that like because I think Facebook ads is one of those things that isn't just helpful in this industry, but honestly, a lot of industries.
Oh yeah.
What would you like tell someone who knows that Facebook ads can help, but like hasn't fully like done it? Like what, like, was there any advice or takeaways you could give?
So straight off the bat, I'll tell you right now, Instagram ads are not nearly as effective as Facebook ads for like the
Really?
type of market I'm trying to reach, right?
Uh-huh.
So I know like straight off the nose,
Yeah,
no
that
one
makes
under the
sense.
age of 25 is
Yeah.
gonna hire me for moving just because like they don't have the money and like
Hmm.
odds are they have some guys they can give pizza and beer. So
Yeah.
I need to hit like 30 to 70 year olds and those people just camp straight
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook. Um, that is probably like the most valuable thing I could say is just like know who you're trying to target age wise
Yeah.
and consider the fact that your parents just aren't on TikTok and Instagram,
Yeah.
like it's just
That's a good point. No, that's really good. So would you said like you would put $50 on Facebook and you'd get like, I think you said like 2 to 3 jobs for like a regular moving job on average. What do you think like you're charging, and like what expenses, or you don't have to go through the expense breakdown, but what do you have to pay for on your end?
so when I say 2 to 3 jobs, that's like that could be junk removal or moving,
Okay.
but it more so I find it more valuable because it contributes to like this everlasting like web of people
Yeah.
in Montgomery County that like know who I am.
Uh-huh.
So I
Agreed.
see that it has like a multiplying effect, if that makes sense. But
Mm-hmm.
probably most of my jobs are word of mouth at this point.
Got
Um,
it.
but yeah, so like for expenses, you've got trucks. So
Mm-hmm.
you either have to, if you want to buy a box truck, like say you're starting a moving business, you're either gonna have to shell out 60,000 or you're gonna have to
Dang.
start moving with U-Haul like I did.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, like I had a pickup truck, but I didn't have like a $60,000
Yeah.
truck.
Yeah.
So that's like okay, you got to be resourceful and go to
Uh-huh.
U-Haul. You pay for that. You've got plastic wrap, mattress bags, TV boxes, tape,
Mm-hmm.
little accessories like that. And then obviously the labor is like the real killer.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, in
Um,
terms of expenses.
would you like, was there any like expensive mistakes or like lessons you've made that you can like recall and you're like, dang, that kind of sucks, but like I did learn a lot?
Yeah, I can definitely be the first to admit that I had this one job where like I was removing tons of bricks. Like when I say tons, I mean like physical weight in tons of bricks
Uh-huh. Oh,
out of this person's garage. And this was like probably like somewhere around like job like 150 to 200.
uh-huh.
And keep in mind, all this happened so fast, like the beginning, because everyone was sitting at home during COVID. And I think like we just hit that time. So things were happening like faster than I could really react and learn to
Mm-hmm.
them. So I pulled up to this job and I bid it to be like, I think like $700, right?
Uh-huh.
And somehow I only lost like $50 on it because I was there like hustling and throwing
Yeah.
bricks into this truck. But I
Uh-huh.
just realized like I was way too tired at the time when I looked at the stuff. Like I wasn't in like a judgment space to make decisions. I
Uh-huh.
made the mistake of giving the guy the price like right there, like 15 minutes later, which you just never do. You always go home
Yeah.
and think about it. And
Okay.
I didn't think about the weight of the bricks, which is why I
Mm-hmm.
ended up losing money, is because there were 8 tons of bricks in that garage
Wow.
and I pay
Wow.
$60 a ton.
Uh-huh.
So I lost like $40, but I was like, dude, I'm never gonna fucking lose money on that again. Like it's done now. So
Jesus Christ. You moved
yeah,
8 tons of brick. Was this like by yourself, or are you hiring people to help move it?
I had 2 people to help
Yeah.
move, but a little secret that you learn when you're in moving is that no one moves as fast as like the guy who's taking the profit
Yeah, that makes
who
sense.
wants to
That
get
makes
out.
sense. Yeah.
So I was probably moving like 1.5 times the rate the other guys were, if we're being
Jeez.
honest. You
Wow.
push them, but I mean, like, no one's going to have that kick like
Uh-huh.
you when you're losing 40, $50, which
So would
isn't a
you say
lot,
that,
but
yeah, yeah, especially after doing all that labor, it
yeah,
probably stings. Um,
yeah, it sucks.
So I guess that's like something like the main lesson there was like just understanding, like taking a step back and evaluating like all the different
Right.
variables and considerations before you take a job. That's really interesting too. I think the kind of next point I want to like look at is like the growth aspect of it. So you, how long ago was this brick thing? Because you said this was probably a job like 150 to 200. Like what count are you at now, if you don't mind sharing?
I'm at like something like 15 to 1600.
Oh wow. And this has
Yeah.
been going on for like 2 years now. Is it like,
Yeah.
have you learned any lessons on like negotiation? Like I'm sure there's people who are like negotiating with you. Like, are there any things that you think work for the customer? Or if not that, like has like lessons you've learned in terms of like the proper way to negotiate while like obviously staying respectful and like winning business?
Yeah, man. So like I've noticed that a lot of people when they try to tell you that they got a price from another company and it's like just doesn't seem right to you, they're 90% of the time
Oh,
lying.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you need to be able to basically rebuke that or refute it in a really nice way. Like you
Hmm.
can't be like, I don't believe you. Like you
Yeah.
obviously can't say that,
Uh-huh.
but you need to say like, does this guy have insurance? Like, are
Uh-huh.
these guys going to do it as well as my guys? And, like these are the expenses I'm paying to get this job done.
Hmm.
Like you need to make it obvious in their face that like they're getting what they're paying for. Because a
Yeah.
lot of the times they're just throwing numbers out. And,
Hmm.
I find that most of the time when I break down my expenses to them a little better, they completely respond and are just like, yeah, you're right. Like you got the job.
Interesting. What would you say there's like anything specific that tends to work? Because I've heard like over my years through business school, just like in general talking to people, I've heard like, oh, you should always like lowball it, or like other people say you should always ask them to get the number first. Like honestly, like what do you think has just been like made you be like, okay, yeah, like I'll give you this job even though like I wanted more?
Oh, you mean like what helped me change people's minds the most?
No, like what helps them change your mind, like on
Oh,
like
what
the
helps
client
them
side?
change my
Yeah,
mind?
like what is there anything specific, like whether they're super nice or like they're just super honest with you? That's what I would think. But like, was there anything from your perspective that tends to work in those negotiation tactics?
So I would say the first thing, and like this is just so objectively true. Anytime that you see a customer that's like very nice, but clearly like horrendously disadvantaged, like I think last summer I had a job for a lady um who had like three kids and no
Wow.
husband.
Uh-huh.
And at the end of the job, she was just like sweating bullets. And I could see like her expression, like,
Uh-huh.
shit, how am I going to afford this? And I was like, all right, like, did you think we did a good job today? And she was like, still very nice. I was like, okay, take $200 off. Just write me a review. Like,
Hmm.
you're fine. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
situations like that. But in the terms of like actual negotiation, I kind of think of it like this, like, how much are they taking off? And is that still going to leave me comfortable profit? And how much
Fair.
of a
Yeah.
headache are they?
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And I commend you for like helping that lady out. That's actually that's super nice of you. And I think that's just like kind of goes to say, like I think you are a very local business, especially with the type of industry you're in. You kind of have to be local. And it's like nice seeing that you're actually doing something to help your community out. And like, have you seen any like thing, like are there certain things you think you've done or your business has done well that's like helped out the community in that way? Or is there anything like you hope to do in the future?
Yeah, so we actually sponsor a little league team, which
Oh
is like the
yeah.
first thing I can think of off my bat.
Uh-huh.
So we paid for their jerseys and we got a banner on their fence
Nice.
right outside of DC. And
Hmm.
I think overall, just the whole like uh, I'm trying to think of the best way to articulate this. The whole like ecosystem responsibility thing,
Hmm.
mainly in trying to recycle and donate,
Yeah.
because all the stuff that donate to this store, gets sold and those profits, you know, get
Yeah.
sent back out to people in need. So that's really the main impact we try
Yeah.
to have.
No, I definitely agree. Like both those things are really cool, especially like you taking step, like that extra step to like recycle and donate. I think that's like honestly an amazing way to give back and still conduct the business you're doing at a high level. The next question I have is like growth. So you said I think you're at like 1600 or you've had 1600 jobs up to this point. What do you think? I could see why this would be like kind of a domino effect because once people know who you are, it's going to be like a lot of word of mouth and it grows itself. Do you think that was like the single like greatest contributor to your growth, or was there something you added on that you think really helped like a local business, or you could recommend to any local business, even if it's not just junk or moving?
Yeah, so I think it's really like, yeah, like you said, I know that there's like a lot of money in my county, and I knew like MoCo junk removal was just going to be marketable to this web of people that
Mhm.
stays here and doesn't go. So that was like kind of
Interesting.
my thought. And
Yeah.
it's just like, you know, if you sit in there long enough, you almost don't even have to, like, I could probably stop marketing right now and I would still be completely fine with getting jobs. Obviously, you know, I
Mhm.
keep doing it. But I think just like overall, more importantly, is just if you enter an industry and you're not like, there's no reason for someone to use you, don't overvalue yourself when you start, you know,
Yeah.
that really
Yeah.
hurts people. That
Interesting.
and just being nice to people and being punctual. Like a lot of people are just very rude. So if you're
Mhm.
nice to people, they think you're God for some reason.
Agreed, especially when you're near DC. I feel like a lot of people
Yeah,
are.
everyone's an asshole. So I mean,
Yeah.
you just got to be somewhat nice and you'll sell stuff.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, it's probably true with New York too, but actually New York people, everyone, I thought that coming in and people are way nicer than I thought they would be. But are there any other marketing channels outside of Facebook and word of mouth that you use today?
Yeah. So I recently did some experimenting with road signs, which was like seems like a
Interesting.
basic thing, but
Yeah,
it didn't hit as well as I would have liked. I
really.
think it's good more for not direct sources of calls, but
Hmm.
more so for just establishing that like community presence of like, hey, I'm around here. And I guess technically that little league thing I did. And then also I do have a signature sandwich at this
Oh,
really popular neighborhood deli named after my business, which
that's insane. That's
yeah,
crazy.
it's been cool, but it's surprisingly apparently they sell like over 150 a week now, and I've
What?
gotten a lot of calls from it.
Wow, that's the craziest marketing I've ever heard. That's the coolest marketing like I've ever
Yeah, thanks,
heard.
man.
How'd you get that?
So I've gone to that deli. Like if you ask Jacob, um,
Uh-huh.
you know, I guess for the people listening, I know him through my friend Jacob. They work at
Yeah,
the same place.
yeah.
Jacob will tell you like, yeah, Izzy's Deli and Bagelery. It's right in
Mhm.
our neighborhood, basically. You know, we all go up there, get breakfast sandwiches, and just
Like, did you buy
everyone.
it out? Like, did you like pay them, or was it like you ate like a bunch of food and then they just gifted it to you, or like how'd you get a sandwich named after you?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I kind of sidetracked,
No,
but
you're good.
I've gone there since I was like 3, so they've always known me.
Uh,
And they come in
wow.
seeing me wearing these shirts, and they're like,
Uh-huh.
"What are these Moco moving shirts you always
Uh-huh.
have?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've been doing moving and junk removal a while." And they're like, "Oh, I saw you on Facebook the other day. Can you do a job for me at my house?" So I
Uh-huh.
did a couple of jobs for them, and I'm like, the fourth job, I'm finally like, Lee's the owner. I'm like, Lee,
Uh-huh.
look, I'm like, I think it would be a great idea if you gave me a signature sandwich and I gave you a $150 discount on this job.
What?
So I
Oh
just
my
gave him a
God.
discount, and he gave me a sandwich. And the sandwich
Jesus
I made
Christ.
is like that classic New York City corner store, like hash brown, meat,
Yeah.
egg, and cheese on a
Oh
bagel.
my
And I
God.
literally just said, let's sell that. And like everyone loves it. And it wasn't there before. So it kicked right
Wow.
off. So
You got a sandwich for $150 discount. That's that's crazy.
Yeah, it was a
Jeez,
really good
that's
move.
really cool. That's marketing genius right there. I feel like that does bring out like that's a really good idea. And I feel like if someone at home or like a listener or whoever like has something that's very local, that could be like an amazing way to get the name out there. Like I would admit, like I would have never thought of that. That's insane. That's really cool. I guess one thing I'll say is I'm like a business major at the University of Texas, and I've always been like super interested in business. And that's why, I mean, obviously, I even reached out to you for this. I think it's like amazing and it's really cool that you started your own business. And I think like in the corporate world that I'm kind of beginning to get in with like my internship and stuff, personally, I'm doing like a form of consulting at the bank. And consulting is like a bunch of PowerPoint slides that's like super shiny at the end, and then you present it to an executive. And from the very start of like my internship, I had this concern that was like, if the executive points at me and is like, okay, now you have to go execute this, I'm worried me as well as the rest of my team can't go and actually execute it. And so I want to applaud you on like your ability to execute on this idea and start this business, because I know that even despite everything you said, there's probably like thousands of other variables you had to work through, like think about, like, because starting a business in theory sounds super easy, but when in actual practice, it must be really difficult. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering, like, what do you think is like the biggest business lesson you've kind of learned, or you would tell someone else, like whether that's advice or just like a realization you've had through starting a business like ground up?
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for the kind words.
Yeah.
I would say definitely just be careful with like how much you think you are and how much you think you know. Like
Hmm.
you can learn from the old homeless man on the corner. Like he
Yeah.
might tell you something and it might snap off like some realization of something you need to do better. Especially, like um you said you're coming from the corporate world. I'm
Yeah.
trying to like minimize my ownership in my business so I can still make passive income off of it.
Uh-huh.
And I have a pending interview with, like business analyst interview with Capital One.
Hmm.
Um, and like you said, like commend me on the execution, but a lot of the stuff that you guys do is like the most important stuff. And
You
I
think
think
so?
that, yeah, no, I think so. And it's really hard to understand. And I think that in my early like time of being in business, I just thought like, hey man, like this isn't that complicated. Like I'm just gonna pick some stuff up and like throw it in
Hmm.
the truck. But in
Yeah.
reality, like you kind of have to have like a small understanding
Hmm.
at least of all that stuff. So
Yeah.
pay attention, kids.
Uh-huh.
That's my that's my
Yeah.
advice.
And I think one other thing I would just extract, like, is like you failed early and quickly, which was actually a good thing. Like with that, like you sending out flyers and it didn't work. The key part was that you kept going. And I think a lot of people, and I've been guilty of this too, when something doesn't work, they tend to kind of leave it there and drop everything. But I think if you just like try a little bit harder, like continue through that like adversity, like something can like amazing can come out of it, I guess, like the same way you did. Um, so that's one thing I'll mention. And then the last kind of like random side like question I had with starting a business that is working with like several different clients, were there any legal complications? Not like in terms of like, oh, someone's gonna sue someone, but like just contracting laborers, like getting jobs, or is this like I is it kind of like more of like, oh, like a cash exchange, which like reduces a lot of the friction of like the legal like banking side of it?
Yeah. So obviously I had to start an LLC
Hmm.
to get everything off the ground. And I have insurance.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
very I would say like a lot of the stuff you can get for starting a business, like I'm talking like I would consider myself a small business. Anyone in your world
Hmm.
would consider me a
Yeah.
small business.
Yeah.
So like I don't want to offend anybody by saying that like their dad who's making 800K a year has a small contracting business. But
Hmm.
any small business when you're first starting, I think it's best to just worry like about like getting some type of something off the ground,
Yeah,
like you
yeah.
said. And then, you do have to be careful constantly because even like, for moving, if I nick someone's floor the wrong way,
Hmm.
they could say it was me and maybe like it wasn't me. Maybe it was
Hmm.
the guy who came in and fixed their fridge 2 weeks ago. But
Yeah,
it's always like stepping on thumbtacks to some extent.
yeah.
But I would say when you're first getting started, try not to overthink things. Just
Mm.
get the bare minimum of what you need and just go with it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's definitely seems like it would be true. But yeah, those were kind of all my questions. This has been like a super, super interesting interview, and I'm really glad we could get it done before it
Yeah,
got too
man.
late and everyone got busy. At this point, I usually ask the guests, like, if you want to plug anything, whether that's obviously your business, like the contact for it, your own socials, parting advice, whatever it is, now's your chance.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to check out my Instagram page, it has like a link to my Facebook, my email, my phone number, pretty much everything. It is just Instagram at MoCo, which spells out MoCo Moving LLC. So MoCo Moving LLC on Instagram is just my page.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Josh. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man, of course. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yep.